Hello, folks, and welcome back to the latest and greatest episode of My Friend Chuck. I'm Mike Richman of the Oregonian OregonLive, and with me, as always, my flat Earth brother, Charles Tuggle. What's up, Chuck?
Nothing, man. It's just people. They need to just do their own research, and don't believe everything that the government tells you, or don't believe everything they tell you in school either. Continue to question, like my main man Kyrie.
Oh, Kyrie Irving only spent, like a year at Duke? He could have gone... I usually tell people to go pro, but in this case, Kyrie should have gone back for one more year at Duke and taken some of those science courses. Or theoretical physics, either one.
Yeah, it's true. We're being a bit harsh on him, really. He probably only went to a handful of class hours, so whenever he goes back to wrap up that degree, he'll straighten out his earth sciences.
Oh, God. Hopefully. Speaking of seventh wonders of the world, or wonders of the world in general, Charles, do you have Nurkic fever? Are you feeling a little peakish?
I do a little bit, and I think I expressed this a little bit when we signed him, that I was very excited about the prospect of him coming to the team, and really that sort of excitement has continued as he's actually gotten to play a little bit, and a large part of that is simply the fact that it's thrown a wrench in a good way into the Trailblazers season, which has just been so underwhelming and disappointing, and so just
lifeless, I would say.
Exactly. There is a listlessness to the season, an ennui to the season that is just frustrating, and the team is so mediocre that it's just I've grown very, very bored of the team, and having trouble sort of tuning into all the games. But
yeah, you got to stay up late on the East Coast to watch those games, and they weren't very rewarding.
Yeah, it's a commitment to be a sports fan, anyways, and for almost any sport, but especially sports like basketball and baseball, because there's lots and lots and lots of games. So to be engaged, it does sort of cost something of your time. Where most sports fans will tell you that that's not an issue, that they like to have that sort of time away. But when the product is really a bummer, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough.
When the product has lost 10 out of 11 games and it doesn't seem like it can get much better.
It's harder. It's a lot harder. But Nurkic, and I thought that he would, if nothing else, he was just going to change the Blazers' identity just a little bit. They were going to have to at least try new sort of things, new sort of styles, some new sets, just new lineups, whatever it is. And the Blazers have done that a little bit. And that's exciting in and of itself. And not to mention the fact that Nurkic is a pretty interesting, skilled big man.
He is, as one Eastern Conference scout told me, or said to me during the win over the Oklahoma City Thunder, he's not Arvydas Sabonis, but he's got a little bit of that in him. He's gigantic. Mm-hmm. He's got good touch, and he can pass a little bit. I mean, that game against OKC, where he played so poorly to start the game and then came back was the hero, I think was sort of the perfect illustration of what he's meant to this team. That he's as good as Mason Plumlee was, and he might have been the Blazers' third best player for a lot of this year. Nurkic is a significant upgrade, maybe on both sides of the ball, and I think that's pretty surprising to me. I didn't expect him to make them much better on defense, and the numbers don't suggest that they're much better on defense. But he's big, and that has really helped him. Mm-hmm. And he's fun. I think that's the thing you can say most about him, is that he's brought a lot of fun to a team that was kind of lacking fun. Like you said, it was becoming a chore. And watching a 7-footer twirl around and throw up half hook shots with 30 seconds left to put the team up 4. That's that if you're a fan, that's as fun as you can have.
It is, and the fact that he's a big, it is also sort of a bit of a change, and not just within the Blazers, but just looking at the sort of league-wide landscape. That there is a dearth of sort of big men, that the game has moved a little further away from the basket, and I think fans just in general, and I'd include Blazers fans in this as well, I think they like to see a big man operate a little bit. There's
a whole get your ass in the paint.
Yeah, there's
crowd.
There's a style to that's fun to watch, and pleasing to watch, and Nurkic has that a little bit, and we might get to this in a moment, but You mentioned it in your recent article on Oregon Live.
OregonLive.com/Blazers. Check it out.
Exactly. Mike here wrote a great article on Nurkic, and you mentioned Dame sort of pulling Nurkic aside a little bit, just trying to teach along with the rest of the Blazers team and staff, trying to get him up to speed. So Nurkic, I think, definitely needs to work a little bit on, I think, his timing on some of his post moves. Dame sort of quoted in the article as saying that he could slow down a little bit, but I think there's times when that goes both ways, where he can make a move a little faster. So I think his timing and awareness and sort of those one-on-one sort of moments, I think he needs to improve on that a little bit. But he's a really young player, and he's got sort of the skills and footwork to make all those things come together.
Yeah, I think all of the things that people were critical of him when I reached out to Denver people after the trade and said sort of what should I expect from this guy is that he was a jerk and he was lazy. And he has been the exact opposite of that for the Blazers. Of course, it's still the honeymoon phase. Who knows if things go south at some point, whether his attitude shifts back. But he has been incredibly attentive, listening to, letting Damian Lillard tell him what to do on the block. You're letting a 6'3", generously 6'3" point guard tell him, here's how here's what you should do when you catch the ball in the paint. I don't know if a lot of centers want to hear that from someone. It's like, thanks for the mechanics help, buddy. And he's, by all accounts, he's worked really hard to get in shape. He showed up after the trade not in NBA shape, not even close to NBA shape. He was basically just dragging himself in that loss against Utah. Mm-hmm. And now he looks to be in a lot better form, to use Charles's preferred soccer terms. And he's growing, and what I wrote about is he's learning the offense just day by day. And the team is really committed to catching him up to speed because he's going to play 32 minutes a night. They're going to play him. So everyone is invested in getting him ready and getting him caught up. And I think that has been probably maybe the best part of the trade is that he's sort of bucked all of the stereotypes about him coming in, that he was had a bad attitude and poor conditioning level.
Yeah. No, his fitness was a bit worrisome. And we mentioned this early on. But he has markedly improved just from the sort of eye test by watching him play and get up and down the court. So that's a very good thing. I still think he's a massive guy. I still think he probably needs to put in a lot of work on his body.
He's listed at 280. There's no way that dude weighs 280 pounds. I'd say 310.
Yeah, he could definitely tighten up just a little bit. Like I had mentioned, weeks past, Marc Gasol is a good model for this. He continues to be about how he's transformed his body just a little bit while maintaining all of his sort of grace and mobility and strength, of course, as well. I don't think Nurkic is going to lose that. He's just a big, strong man.
He's a monster. That's the most exciting part about watching him is that he's pretty much bigger and stronger than anyone else he plays against. So there are these, the matchup with Steven Adams. That was fun. That was fun basketball. They were pushing each other. Mm-hmm. It was as physical as it gets on the block. And same with Cantor too. And I don't know that the Blazers have had. Myers Leonard battles with people, but he usually just gets elbowed in the face.
Yeah,
he's got that special face magnet to get elbowed in the face at all times. And Nurkic is the guy more likely to deliver those elbows. And I think that's a welcome change in sort of the Blazers front line, the composition of the front line, especially with Ed Davis gone and Festus, who we'll talk about. Festus Ezeli not in there ever. He was supposed to be that size on the front line. They need it. They need help especially if they're going to play with Chief, who's been playing a lot better, but at him at 4, they need some size up front to sort of combat other 5s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's exciting. I haven't really thought much about what Nurkic's sort of ceiling would look like, just both individually and as a component of a team. I'm not sure I'm really ready to comment on that just yet, but he's an interesting player.
Has he been the Blazers' third best player since he's been there?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd say it's close between him and Aminu because Aminu's played really well the last.
Yeah. Aminu's sort of come to life again. But yeah, I'd say so, especially considering just that he's held it down low. Either way, he's been very, very impactful for the Blazers. And their performances and results. So yeah, I think Blazers fans and I as well are very excited about having Nurkic and glad that we have a change to this this bit sort of.
Also good for Neil Olshey because people were getting really mad at him for sort of his moves last offseason. It seems like he really won this trade with Nurkic and a first-round pick for Plumlee. Seems like he did really well.
Yeah, I can't imagine a single fan laments Plumlee's departure.
Plumlee was really good and he played really hard. He was one of the few guys you could count on to play really hard each night. But he had limitations, and Nurkic answered some questions that Plumlee didn't necessarily answer.
Yeah, I mean, just to have Nurkic anywhere sort of near the basket and know that he's going to be banging about, he's going to have decent touch. That's just a relief that we never saw with Plumlee. And no knock on Plumlee.
Good player.
Yeah.
Going to get paid like it too this summer. So
he is a good player. But you're exactly right. Everyone, I think, recognized his limitations and maybe grew a bit frustrated with them. So yeah, I don't think his absence is missed. Either with regards to the team or from the fans, but I'm sure everyone wishes him Plumlee the best sort of moving forward in his career.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said you hadn't considered Nurkic's ceiling because one of the reporters on the Blazers beat, not myself, but was pressing Terry Stotts on what was Nurkic's ceiling, and he was really resistant, saying, I don't like to put ceiling on players because it's people say that that's like what they can be, their potential, but to him he was saying that putting a ceiling on a player sort of limits them. It says this is the best they can possibly be, and it reminded me of when I always thought that the best CJ McCollum could be was Lou Williams.
Ooh. That's not a bad. That's not a bad shout because Lou Williams is a great scorer in this league and he's scored consistently, literally everywhere he's been. So that's really not terrible, but you see what sort of special player CJ has become.
I know exactly. So it's like at the time you thought it was a compliment.
Yeah,
He could be a lethal. My scoring game travels anywhere, and now it seems like he could be in that conversation for. I mean, he already is one of the top 5 shooting guards in the league, and it seems like his arrow is pointing up still. So I respect the sort of from both you and Stotts to say I'll hold off on giving him a ceiling because it is easy to be wrong in this world.
Yeah, and I'd say on my end, I'm not really thinking about setting expectations. It's just I've been hesitant to do that because I guess I'd like to see a little bit more of him.
Right, he's played 7 games.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen enough to really make up my mind on what would be like a nice sort of ceiling for him because I think he has tons of room to improve just with his mobility and body, but also some of his sort of timing and awareness. So I look forward to sort of finding a nice sort of player comparison for him, and who knows, maybe I'll have to go back in time a little bit. Since now we live in the that space and sort of flow era, to find a nice
pace and space
pace
if you're
and
Eric
space.
Spoelstra.
Exactly, my rhymes are off.
Yeah, well, that's why you're not a great coach like Spo.
Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and watch some more footage of Sabonis and see if there's more similarities there. But it's early. It's early, and
it is.
They're
about to play Game 8. We're about to play Game 8 of the Nurkic era, so let's maybe Game 20. We'll check back Game 20 and see if we still think he's Sabonis light. But he's definitely fun. He's been fun, and I think his great play. He had 2 buckets and 2 free throws in the final 55 seconds to help the Blazers hold off the Oklahoma City Thunder this week. But that game where he finished with 17, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, it really overshadowed an incredibly balanced and effective performance from the rest of the Blazers, including Alan Crabbe, who had 23 points. He had 7 of 10 shots, 5 of 7 threes, and all of a sudden, aggressive Alan Crabbe was helping the Blazers, and I wrote about this. Boy, do they need him to be aggressive. It's ridiculous how much better they are when Alan Crabbe looks for his own shots. He has, he has had so many nights where he takes 4 shots, he goes 2 for 4, and he doesn't even, he just doesn't exist.
Yeah, he's important to the team, and before last night's performance which was a great performance for him and something I think he's capable of replicating many times over.
Right? Like, I don't know if he's going to score 23, but like close to it, 15, 18 should be easy.
It really should be. So before last night's performance, I had actually made some notes to talk in the pod about how disappointed I've been with Crabbe.
Well, let's give it to him. Give me those disappointment notes.
It's just, look, on the one hand, he's remained remarkably consistent with last season's production. On the one,
almost identical numbers.
Exactly, like spooky, uncanny similarities. So on the one hand, I think you can draw encouragement from that, and that he's beginning to have sort of known quantities, sort of with the value that he offers. On the other hand, it's a bit discouraging because it doesn't really look like he's developed much this season. Like, it's hard for me to look at his game and say he improved on X, Y, or Z, even if it's sort of intangible stuff like confidence or aggression or comfort level. You know, these things are difficult to sort of quantify, of course. And it's hard to say how much he's actually improved, and that's a bit worrisome. Considering he's on a huge contract, a massive contract.
He got a $17 million pay raise. Massive
contract. Even with this cuckoo summer we had where all sorts of weird contracts were growing up and the CBA is rapidly expanding the salary cap. Huge contract. And
yeah, I mean, he might have gotten the most bonkers contract of the summer. Which, credit to him. Go get your money, Playboy. As the Blazers like to tell their colleagues, secure your bag. And Alan Crabbe secured his bag. There is no doubt.
Yeah, he's got tons of bags secure, man. He's got houses secure right now. Automobiles secure. So that's a bit worrisome. And for one, I see no reason why this summer he can't become a much better ball handler. Like, why has that not happened yet?
Yeah, I mean,
why is he's still so young? That seems like something, if you have a shooting skill at all, you can improve on. Why doesn't he spend all summer working on his handle? I don't mean to take a knock on his sort of work ethic either. I have no idea how hard he works in the gym or what sort of his off-season plans look like. But that he hasn't become a better ball handler to put the ball on the floor once or twice and attack the rim, that's worrisome.
Yeah. It is. And I don't know that he's ever going to become a great passer. I think that's more of a natural instinct thing than something you can develop.
Sure.
But just a couple more dribble moves to free himself up to score in isolation. That's it. Look at Harrison Barnes. Not a dribbler, not a passer, but he's sort of developed ways to get himself shots off. He's obviously a little bigger than Crabbe, but he plays against fours. But still, that kind of dribbling skill set, I think, is what Crabbe needs. And I wrote about this on stories on OregonLive about Crabbe just needing to shoot more. The Blazers are 13-6 when Crabbe takes 10 shots. They're 14 and let me do the math real quick. They're 14-29 in the other 43 games that he plays. So he just has these passive nights where he does nothing.
Yeah.
And when he takes 10 shots, when he's assertive and looking for his shots, the Blazers win. As simple as that. And curiously, I don't know if the Blazers knew that number. I ran it by Stotts, and he didn't seem like he knew it necessarily. He kind of jokes, well, then we'll have to get him 10 more shots.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah. But I know that CJ McCollum and Terry sat down with Allen maybe right around the All-Star break and basically said, how can we get you going? What are the plays we need to run to get you shots? We want you to shoot more.
Mm-hmm.
And Dame said he's been telling him for 2 years, shoot the ball every time you touch it. Shoot the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's a little bit... And Allen admits that he has games where he's passive and kind of floats and does nothing. But, I think playing hard is a skill, but it's not necessarily playing hard. It's just looking for yours. He's third in the NBA in three-point percentage. He's one of the best shooters in the league. He has to play like it. And I think that's kind of, like you said, it's like he's figured out what he can do consistently, and he has not pushed beyond that yet. And he hasn't, you'd kind of like to see him just have some ball hog nights.
Yeah, he's proven his skills as a shooter, his value as a shooter. He is a great shooter. He's proven that, and ever since I first started watching with the Blazers, even when he didn't get minutes, you could tell he had a jump shot.
His mechanics are great.
You saw his form. You're like, okay, this guy's a shooter. And he just needs to sort of get out there and get the minutes and get the comfort level. And now it seems like he has that comfort level, but there's just quarters where he just disappears. It'll go through these large, long stretches, and when he's not touching the ball enough, he's not getting enough shots off, and that's a massive loss for the team. And for himself individually, because he can put the ball in the bucket. and he can shoot really, really well. So I don't know what the team needs to do to sort of push him to break out of his shell just a little bit, or to force scoring opportunities on him. But they need to work on this because he can. I think he can kind of grow into that contract a little bit. You know, he does have the skills. Like he could be like a Klay Thompson light.
I was thinking that Klay Thompson he's not a dribbler, he's not a passer, but he does shoot. Like, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be Klay, as good as Klay, but Klay light, closer towards what Klay does, I think is a realistic goal for Allen Crabbe to push towards.
Yeah, I agree. And there's times, you know, when you watch the Warriors where it's Klay time. You know, like, and I don't know if they carve out those sections or if Klay's just sort of grown into his role to know that those are his moments. But there'll be large sections of a quarter where maybe, you know, whoever else is resting, and Klay is dominating. And
like Crabbe, Klay is usually coming off screens, working his way off the ball. He's not dribbling into stuff. He's not running pick and rolls. He's working open with the help of his teammates. And that's one of Crabbe's limitations, is that he needs help from his teammates. But so that's why I do believe, I mean, Klay is obviously a high sort of target to aim for, but I agree with you. That's the right idea, is someone who can be lethally effective and challenge defenses by movement and action and activity off the ball. Yeah,
exactly. I think you're exactly right. And not to sort of mention, like, this isn't a ceiling, but, you know, we talk about Nurkic should look to Marc Gasol, I think, to emulate his skill set, his player path, his career development. And I think it's fair to say that Crabbe should really look at Klay Thompson in a similar way. Not that he can be Klay Thompson.
Right, he's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to be an all-NBA, fringe all-NBA type
it's
player.
Just
but
a model to look at and to sort of base your game off of a little bit. And Klay's improved a lot in his sort of aggression as well over his career. Allen Crabbe should be looking at all sorts of Klay Thompson footage to improve his game, and he can sort of help reach that level.
It is interesting that the Blazers behind the scenes have been like, we need you, and they're open about you know, leaning on Crabbe, saying we need you to be aggressive. That's troubling thing to dial up game 60 of this season, that he's still trying to find his ways to be aggressive. But you know, maybe he'll figure it out, or maybe he'll end up on a new team. He's probably the guy they'd most like to trade, if I had to guess.
Yeah, well, then it is sort of reassuring that the team is sort of pushing him to be more aggressive, and that he has the sort of trust and support of his teammates. That's a good thing. Maybe at a certain point in a year or so, if he hasn't sort of made those strides, then it was sort of all on him in the end. Which isn't to say that he would sort of fail in this respect, but that the team does seem to be doing the right things, if we sort of hear what you're saying, Mike, in terms of pushing him toward that level. So it seems like they're doing all they can. So we'll see.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be the perfect complement to Evan Turner, because Turner likes to dribble, and then pass. And I thought Crabbe could, you know, take advantage of that by moving hard off the ball, cutting into space, you know, being that complement for Turner. And they just sucked together. They sucked. They had to basically split up their minutes because they just didn't work together. And you know, CJ's not exactly a natural passer, as Wesley Matthews joked back maybe 3 years ago. You know you're open if CJ passes you the ball, which I don't think it's as bad now, but CJ does have that sort of pound the rock, ball hog type things. But I mean, if Crabbe was aggressive and shot every time he came off the screen, he would get the ball more. Guys would look to him.
Right.
Guys would look to him.
There's also times when I see Crabbe pass up on a 3-point shot.
Yeah, he did that against OKC, and apparently Dame yelled at him.
Yeah, there's some times when, and I guess that can be tough to find the balance as a player, because at least how most teams want to play basketball these days, it's to look for the best possible shot, and that's almost always coming after some passing. So it's tough for him to balance, I imagine. But there's times when he's sort of whipping the ball around, and he sort of skips himself.
Agreed. And I mean, Allen Crabbe taking an in-rhythm catch-and-shoot three is one of the best shots you're going to get on any possession.
Yeah, he's a money shooter.
Yeah.
Simple as that. He's a sharpshooter.
Yeah. And teams, you know, I think we're being a little critical. Teams know that he's a shooter. He gets more attention than he's ever had this year. But that doesn't explain. He should be, you'd rather him miss 8 shots than attempt 4 shots. How about, I'll say it like that. He just
Yeah.
needs to be more assertive. He can't go 2 for 4. You'd rather him go 2 for 12. As stupid as that sounds, but he needs to hold teams accountable by being aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's still time left in the season, but that it's taken this sort of long and hasn't sort of improved. You're right, is a bit bothersome.
Yeah. Okay. So before the Allen Crabbe 23-point nights, and before Yusuf Nurkic became the greatest hero Rip City has ever seen, the Blazers did not play a game on, I guess, Monday night in Minnesota. I was there. It was as strange a evening as I've ever had covering the team for three or so seasons. So basically, both teams had shoot around in the morning at Target Center. The court was fine. By the time they showed up for the game, I got there at about 5 o'clock for a 7 p.m. tip-off local time, and the players were basically saying, Dame called me out onto the court and said, there's no way we can play on this surface, come out here. And I walked out there with him and sort of did a little shimmy above the three-point line, and it was slick. I could moonwalk on that bad boy. That's as bizarre bizarre game scenario as I've ever seen. Were you following along with that, Charles?
Yeah, I was a little bit. I hopped on Twitter and saw that you were tweeting about court conditions, and that stands out to me because you're right. This is sort of an anomalous situation. This is an odd situation. Of course, there's operational sort of things and travel issues in which games are canceled or delayed, but it's unusual. And much credit there has been due to sort of the NBA and all the franchises for making sure everything's up and running. But kind of embarrassing for the Timberwolves.
Yeah, no, it's embarrassing. I agree.
Like you have game operations and yeah, okay, Disney on Ice or whatever it was there the night before, but this is all normal. Each venue has to plan for the different events, and you have arenas all over the country that switch from hockey to basketball and things like that. So
sometimes same day in LA. Often the Kings will play during the day and the Lakers will play at night.
So a bit embarrassing for game operations in Minnesota. That's not a good look.
Yeah, I do think there was just some sort of cold weather people problems. It was 60-some degrees, 62 degrees, I believe was the high that day in Minneapolis. It was gorgeous. I loved it. I was really having a nice time. It was just a beautiful day. I was walking around in a t-shirt and jeans in downtown Minneapolis, but it was so warm that they didn't adjust the temperature inside Target Center. So what they should have done was keep Target Center as cold as they possibly could, but instead they just kept it at their sort of normal game ops whatever, room temperature level. And because it was so warm there, it ended up causing a lot of condensation on the court. And it wasn't just Disney on Ice. They left the ice under the arena because there's a college hockey tournament coming up this weekend or maybe right now at Target Center. So there was a reason they were keeping it. And this was just, they biffed it.
Yeah.
They biffed it.
What shambles, really?
And it wasn't just the Blazers, importantly. The Timberwolves, and I don't spend a lot of time around the away team because that's just not my job. I'm covering the Blazers. But I guess during their warm-ups, too, they were also complaining, hey, this is not acceptable. So it wasn't like just the road team was saying, hey, this isn't okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't push that either. I mean, that's very, very, very dangerous.
Yeah, I believe CJ McCollum said on a radio hit this morning, I just saw this tweet, that he thinks the Timberwolves should take a loss for this.
Oh.
Let me just
that's
say,
a hot take.
Hell no.
That's a hot take.
Hell no. I mean, I know CJ was probably pissed, and now they have to go back there and play a back-to-back later in the season. It's April 3rd is the game. They'll play a back-to-back there and then at Utah. That's unfortunate. That sucks. That's a crappy little schedule quirk because they were supposed to have time off now, and now they have to take that flight and play back-to-back. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
But hell no, it had nothing to do with anyone who's involved in the basketball side of the Timberwolves. This was a game operations arena problem, not a Tom Thibodeau, Karl Anthony Towns problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I doubt Andrew Wiggins is carrying paneling of the floor from here to there.
Andrew Wiggins came in that morning. He's like, can we make it a little warmer in the arena? I'm a little chilly. Yeah, that didn't happen. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know what radio program that was on. I believe it was on Rip City Radio 620 in Portland. Let me just say, disagree, CJ.
Yeah, on to the next one. You're going to have to play that game. 82, full 82, CJ.
Yeah. There actually was a scenario where the Celtics only played 81 games 2 years ago, but that was after the Boston Marathon attacks, and it was the final game of the season was supposed to be rescheduled. But it had no effect on the seedings either way, so they decided to cancel it. And I believe the Pacers and the Celtics each only played 81 games in a season. But that was extenuating circumstances. That's
right.
Very, very rare to happen again.
Right. Yeah, that's not right. They need to be playing full schedules, even if the scheduling of the games is a bit wonky.
Yeah, no, bummer for the Blazers that they have to play Utah on a back-to-back, because that's tough.
Utah's good.
The Jazz are really freaking good. You have to play a game at altitude, and if they have, you want it to be sort of equally rested heading into that game, especially sort of where the Blazers are standings-wise. If they want to make the playoffs, sorry tank friends, but the Blazers really want to make the playoffs, so. They want to win every game they can. And I think they're playing really well right now. The only positive, though, is that Evan Turner will almost certainly be back for that game. So that's probably a bonus.
Yeah, probably. I think he started to find some form before he did. He knocked his hand.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he moves back into that starting lineup and they bring Mo and Chief off the bench to sort of juice that backup group. It'll be interesting. But speaking of that backup group, it seems like that reserve unit has a new face, a new shorter face. Shabaz Napier seems to have taken over that sort of backup wing guard minutes as the ninth man in the rotation ahead of Pat Connaughton, and Jake Layman. Charles, what have you seen from my man Shabaz?
Shabazz, he takes care of the ball. I think better than the other two,
he can and he can dribble,
and he can handle the ball very, very well. And he's got a decent jump shot too.
And he stopped shooting every time he touched the ball, which I think has helped.
Right. Yeah, his shot selection needed a bit of improvement, but he's got a decent shot, and I'm not upset when I see him shoot the ball when it comes to it. I have some confidence in him.
He had a huge bucket late against OKC. I thought he played really well.
I mean, the Blazers needed a ball handler. That's why they brought in Evan Turner in the offseason to sort of address this issue.
Right.
So
good point.
So it seems natural that he would carve out that space for himself eventually. And it's probably a good thing for the Blazers. Yeah, he's so small though. You got to worry about him defensively.
He goes hard though. He got when the point guard. When it's a point guard who is that ninth guy on the other team or the 10th guy on the other team, that's when Baz has played best because he can guard point guards.
Right. Small guys.
He can't really guard anyone else, but he goes hard against point guards. I think that's actually helped him a little bit.
Yeah, that's just a problem for the Blazers in general, I suppose, guarding guards. I mean, Westbrook dropped 58 last night or 2 nights ago. Was that 2 nights ago that game?
Well, 2 nights ago. He needed 61.
Yeah, he needed more. But he didn't have a problem dropping a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, he had 41 points on 60% shooting through 3 quarters. And I don't think Baz ever shared a single minute on the court with Westbrook. I think he only guarded Norris Cole and Samaj Christian. He guards backup point guards because it's a way backup point guards have for the last couple of years have really been a problem for those Trailblazers. The Corey Josephs and DeLon Wrights of the world have lit up the Blazers traditionally.
Yeah, that's a problem. So hopefully Shabazz can help neutralize some of that threat.
Yeah, I think he's been a pleasant surprise, and I don't think he, if this season is still sort of about simultaneously chasing this playoff spot, but also developing the young core. I don't think you're like playing the Baz over Pat Connaughton isn't like a development over success thing. Like Baz is a young guy, 3rd year in the league or whatever. It's still a development thing for him, even if he's a little bit older because he's a 4-year. Well, he's not older than Pat, but 4-year player coming out of UConn, or as Shabazz always says, the University of Connecticut.
Very proper.
He never says UConn. Never. I've talked to him about college maybe 10 times, and he always says the University of Connecticut.
Yeah, it's a nice school. Good school.
Good women's program. Go Tar Heels.
They probably got some good programs over there. academic programs.
Yeah, Justin Verrier, who covers the New Orleans Pelicans for ESPN, went to UConn, so it had produced at least one NBA scribe.
They probably have a handful of other successful people there, but
that's
shout
the
outs
only
to
job
Justin.
that matters. That's the only job that matters, dude. I don't know whatever your trash job is. You can have, you had to go to Yale to get a job, so listen, buddy.
Yeah, still probably gonna be struggling here.
Oh, what a world. Okay, last bit of news before we get out of here. The Blazers, well, they have a whole bunch of injuries. Ed Davis's season is over. He's having surgery to repair a torn left labrum. He's under contract for next year, so Ed will be back, or potentially could be back.
And let me say this. Ed Davis needs to bounce back. He was dreadful this year.
Yeah,
dreadful.
He was. And it might have been the shoulder thing.
Yeah. If his shoulders bother him all year, then that has something to do with it. So yeah, whenever I say a player's dreadful, I'm not commenting on effort levels or anything like that. But
he was just way worse.
Davis has been awful this year. So hopefully he comes back better next year, because that was a complete loss of a season for him. And hopefully he recovers and he's ready for tip-off in November. Late October.
Yeah, he was so good the year before too.
Oh, he was one of my fan favorites last year.
Yeah.
And
then this year last year was like, if Ed Davis comes in the game, 4 good things are going to go the Blazers' way. Just his energy, his put back dunks, hustling on defensive rebounds.
Plays, just like those sort of momentum sort of changing plays. Maybe that's a bit of a myth sometimes, but just grabbing a massive,
momentum might be fake, but he plays
massive
hard.
Offensive rebound, or a big block, or finishing strong through some contact. Like he just had massive plays last year. Even his numbers are obviously very modest and pedestrian, but
but in small doses he would be great.
Yeah, no, he had huge moments, and he was he just never clicked this year, and I guess that had a little bit to do with his fitness. Best of luck to Ed Davis, and we need you next year, brother.
It's interesting. He seemed like someone had to talk him into getting surgery. Like he did not want to do this. It was a last resort type of thing. And I wonder if the Blazers were in a different position standings-wise if Ed would have had that surgery.
Yeah, surely that has something to do with it.
It didn't seem like this was something that he was like, I've got to fix this. I want to blah, 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 blah. It seemed like his agent and maybe the Blazers also convinced him that this was in his best interest to go ahead and do this. Because, they're going to play Nurkic those minutes. They're going to, he had already lost his spot to Myers Leonard for the most part, and he just wasn't as good. And so maybe they talked him into it. I don't really know the details there. Ed was not very forthcoming. He did not want to talk about his surgery in the brief moment. He's a pretty nice guy, though, so maybe I'll go back at him and try to get some more details when he's not as in a bad mood. Maybe he'll be on painkillers from his surgery when he's at the game tonight.
Okay. You got to be careful there, though, Mike. We don't want you violating ethical mandates of
I'm not gonna give him the painkillers.
Right, but let's unpack this real quick. What if you showed up and Davis is super high on oxycodone or whatever it is, even if they were properly
children's Tylenol
prescribed by a doctor, they can still make you feel
messed up on
funky.
Children's Tylenol.
I mean, can you not imagine a scenario where you feel like it would be inappropriate to ask questions because you recognize the subject is not in good health?
Yeah. If he was noticeably loopy, I don't think I'd be like, okay, buddy, you're going to tell me the truth now.
Hey, what Coach Stott say the other day in the locker room?
Yeah, exactly. Like, tell me the first 4 plays you guys are going to run tonight. Yeah, no, you're right. I was more joking. I guess now when you put it sort of in those plain terms, I do understand what you're saying. But I guess my joke was that maybe he'll be, now that he knows his season is over, a little more forthcoming on what caused him to be that. But yeah, you're right. You should not, as a general journalistic rule, if someone is incapacitated on painkillers or otherwise, you should not use that opportunity to approach them.
Yeah, but we don't want to see Ed in that sort of state. We want to see him healthy.
I want to see him flexing and making left-handed layups because, boy, howdy does he only use his left hand.
Yeah.
And that's what shoulder was hurt, and I think that's a big deal. Yeah. He's as left-handed dominant as they come in the league. Maybe only Zach Randolph is more left-handed. Julius Randle, Zach Randolph, and Ed Davis, I think, are the most left-handed people in the NBA.
Yeah.
And Ed having a busted left-handed left shoulder is probably, sunk his whole season maybe.
Yeah, well, hopefully he gets that straightened out.
All right, well, moving on,
needs him.
because there's just a ton of injuries. Evan Turner had his cast removed last Friday. He's in a splint now. I think he plays sometime on the Blazers' next road trip. We'll see. I haven't seen him. He didn't go on the little short 2-gamer to Minnesota and Oklahoma City. He stayed back to rehab. So we'll know more tonight after the Blazers play the Sixers. But the big one, Festus Ezeli's season is officially done. Charles, what are your thoughts on Festus's career as a Blazer? And do you believe it's over also?
Yeah, it's likely over, and he's been a mess. Just anytime he's been in the news, it hasn't been for great reasons. Another setback, another injury. Oh, he's practicing. Oh, his knee's swelling more than we thought. No, he's not coming back. That's just been a...
Oh, he's telling CJ to... he's lecturing the team in the locker room and CJ's telling him to shut up.
Yeah, it's just not a good look. The injury stuff you can't do anything about, but some of that other nonsense is a bit frustrating, and I'm sure that troubled the Blazers locker room just a little bit. That's been just a disaster of a signing by Neil O'Shea. I don't know what to say. If he ever plays for the Blazers, he's going to have a zombie knee. That's all that needs to be said. He's
because he's getting the
receiving a cadaver ligament. I barely know what that means. I do know what it means, but I barely know how to make sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't totally understand knee surgeries, but I guess in some situations they just cut out those ligaments. They remove. I mean, not like your ACL and stuff. They usually, but like it's for like meniscus issues, they just remove your meniscus. So I guess in this way he's getting like a working joint.
Yeah, he's getting a
working ligament.
He's getting a new little ligament, which is left over for some dead body that's moved on to the next stage. And I guess they'll just throw it in there, and then assuming that it's a healthy old ligament, it can sort of graft and attach. I have no medical background. I should say that right now as I'm explaining.
Whatever. I feel like you were using good medical words.
That wasn't a graft, attach.
Yeah, no, I think this was the surgery, from what I understand, that Festus had always wanted. He was looking to get this procedure, and that's why he waited until this date to get it. And he's one of the first NBA players, according to Chris Haynes, who wrote the story for ESPN, that has received this type of treatment. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not a good look. If you as a player are like looking forward to or are hoping to receive a particular sort of procedure, I mean, that says a whole lot, and it says that maybe Ezeli's career, not only with the Blazers but with the NBA, is not.
I do think his
not so long lasting.
His entire NBA playing career is in jeopardy. He's not going to cost the Blazers anything. He's a partially guaranteed $1 million for next year. So they'll basically have to pay that plus probably a little bit of tax money on that, unless they trade him to some other team that wants to absorb his $1 million and have a similar and get maybe some salary relief for a team that's below the floor or whatever it is. But he's not going to be. It's not a huge hit to them, but he did soak up the rest of their salary cap money this year.
Yep.
So. Yep. That would have been money that they maybe could have used to make a move. Obviously, they ended up getting Yusuf Nurkic, but this was the big, burly, sort of large center in the middle was the guy they needed or they believed they needed and believe they found with Festus. And, he never suited up. He probably practiced with the Blazers 6 or 7 times, and that was it. That's the extent of his entire career.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even a Blazer. I won't even remember him sort of looking back, and again, whether that's his fault or just sort of the fates with regards to his injuries is beside the point, because his Blazers career is completely forgettable.
Yeah, and I will say it again. I believe, because he's going to be a year removed after he had the surgery yesterday, and it's probably going to be a full year before he's able to play basketball again. I think his NBA playing career is in jeopardy, and I say that not as just sort of random speculation. When I spoke to him, when the sort of story that he was eyeing surgery came out, and I got to talk with him in prior to the Blazers' 45-point loss in Golden State in December, but he was talking like a guy who was thinking about his long-term health and his long-term sort of ability to walk and move and live a pain-free life, and not like a guy who was trying to figure out how to prolong his NBA career. He was a guy looking at his answers seemed like a guy looking at a much bigger picture. You can find that on OregonLive.com. Festus Ezeli, search for something like this is something I need to take care of, I believe is the title of the Festus Ezeli's knee injury post that I wrote. And at the time, it seemed like a guy who wasn't thinking about sort of playing an NBA basketball game in a few months, or it was a guy who was thinking about, I'm 7 feet tall and it hurts when I walk. How can I fix this?
Yeah, that's a heck of a scoop there. Yeah, so maybe we'll never get to see Festus Ezeli in a Trailblazers uniform or any other uniform, but again, we always wish these guys the best.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, that sucks. He's not that old, he's 27 or 28 maybe. This is a bummer to have your career cut short like this. But it was his in a season where a lot of stuff has gone wrong for the Blazers, his situation is just like a sort of a solid example of it. They think they have a solution and they end up with nothing.
Yeah, a bit of a microcosm of the Blazers season, huh? Yeah.
I guess we do this every time before we leave. Charles, what are your thoughts on the Blazers? Are they going to make the playoffs now?
I mean, now they're close again. As of recording this, we're recording on Thursday, March 9th. The Blazers are in 9th place, solely in 9th place, and they're one game behind Denver.
They can tie Denver tonight if they beat the lowly 76ers, who they lost to before, so nothing's set in stone.
Yeah, got a winnable one tonight for sure, but nothing is guaranteed for this Trailblazers basketball team. Yeah, I don't even know, and I don't even know what I want for them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too. Do you want them to make the playoffs? Because here's the thing. They're not going to tank, like all-out tank. They're not going to finish with like the 5th or 6th or 7th pick in the draft. They're just not going to lose that much, I don't think.
I know, and
barring something strange.
You have to depend on all the other teams' sort of performances and everything. Dallas, are they really improving that much? No, these are the teams that are directly below us.
I think Dallas is a real threat because I think the Nerlens Noel trade helps the Mavs a lot.
Sure, I mean they obviously have the experience with Dirk, with Rick Carlisle to do something, but they're not a super scary team.
Right, and they're not head and shoulders above the Blazers by any means.
No, they're not. The Blazers could just sort of mess around and maybe finish with an identical record.
Right.
The Timberwolves, no.
Not a believer.
Sacramento, New Orleans, they're just hilarious, and it'll be really funny if the Kings finish with a better record than the Pelicans.
You got to be rooting for that, right? For the Kings to finish like a game ahead
at this point, yeah.
Me too. I'm all in on it. I think it's great.
I thought I was going to be all in on the Boogie Cousins and AD Pelicans, but no, I don't really have any interest in watching them.
No, I've watched them like 4 times, and they're boring as hell.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
They're so boring. I don't know what their solution is. We'll talk about them in the offseason, but like, man, I thought they were going to be fun, and they are not that fun.
No, it's an odd pairing, and yeah, we'll have to address that deeper a little later on. So I mean, the Blazers might just kind of mess around and just make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they have a home game against the Nuggets. I want to say on the 23rd of March. That's just off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I mean that game is going to be huge. That might decide who makes the playoffs because that would give the Blazers the tiebreaker over Denver. That would be 3-1 in the series over Denver. So that would be a big one. So that's going to be a huge one. I don't know. I think I would give the Blazers like in the low 40s chance to make the playoffs just because it's a 3-team race and Denver and Dallas are right there. But I mean they have a much better. The last time we did this podcast, I thought this is it. They had a nice run, but they're not going to make it. And now I'm starting to think, well, this might actually happen.
Yeah, no, it's a real possibility, and you're right. They're certainly not going to like tank. And it would, even if they did, it would be really difficult to like really bottom out.
They'd have to lose like 6-7 in a row of their, they have 20 games left. They probably have to.
It would be a skilled sort of tanking process for them to finish out below.
2 weeks ago they were pretty close. 2 weeks ago they were pretty close to the 4th or 5th pick in the draft. They've won too many games since then.
Yeah. So now they're sort of stuck in this difficult position a little bit. But at this point, I'm almost like all on board with the playoff train. Just like let's just make the playoffs. It'll be some more basketball. We'll we'll see Nurkic work a little bit in the postseason. I just don't know, you know?
Yeah, and the team wants to make it. I don't know how the front office feels. No front office would come out and say we want to miss the playoffs. But players and coaches are dead set on making it. So it's not like they're going to bench Damon CJ and roll with Connaughton and Napier to close the season out. They want to be in the playoffs. Period. So if they do miss, it's like why I kind of lean towards they might as well make it is because if they make the playoffs, they're going to end up with what, like the 15th pick, 16th pick, and if they just randomly miss it, they're going to end up with the 12th or 13th pick.
So, yeah,
exactly. And maybe that's a big difference, in the long term sort of the way draft prospects work, but in sort of like this season, I don't think the Blazers view the 15th and 12th as that different. I think Neil Olshey believes that he can draft winners at any spot.
For sure. If the organization has trust in their sort of developmental apparatus, then they shouldn't be worried about 12th versus 15th at all.
Right, and they have 3 picks. If they see someone they really love at 11th and they're at 15th, they can trade to get them.
Right. They can make moves and then bring them in and see what happens from there. But like we've seen the last few years, I don't know how well the Blazers are really successful at developing players.
You're hating on my man Alan Crabbe just because he hasn't improved very much this season.
Hey,
and also Myers Leonard has sucked.
CJ's a great example of Blazers' ability to sort of train and improve and develop players, but there's some other guys on the roster that doesn't really seem like they've developed much. And was that sort of
yeah, you would have felt better talking about Myers and AC before this season, I guess. I do agree with you on that. Prior to the season, you would have said, "Hey, listen, they develop guys behind the scenes," and now it's like, do they?
Yeah, do they? Exactly. We don't really know. But obviously they have the faith in their ability to do that. So. And
they nurture guys. They at least Damian Lillard nurtures guys behind the scenes, but who knows how much that impacts them truly on the court.
Yeah, no, they give players opportunities. Look at Noah Vonleh continues to get opportunities. He ain't really improved either.
Yeah, he probably had his best game ever as a Blazer, 11-5 against OKC. Think about that. Let that one sink in. He started like 100 games over the past 2 years, and his best game might have been an 11-5 performance against the Thunder.
Yeah, he's gotten so many opportunities. Last season, all of last season, this season he's been slotted into starting lineups here recently. He hasn't really improved very much at all.
Yeah. So okay, maybe your haterism is correct.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well. If you like this podcast, please let us know. Leave us a review on iTunes. Just search My Friend Chuck. You can follow all my work, OregonLive.com/Blazers for my stuff and my colleagues' coverage of the Trailblazers. You can follow me on Twitter, @MikeGRich. If you're looking for Charles's insights on the world and how he knows that the earth is flat, he is at MC Hellenarls on Twitter and also various other places on the web. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next week. Peace out, Chuck.
Bye.